Okay, so the law of sines looks a little complicated because they gave you three pieces of a proportion, but we only solve two at a time. So essentially what's going to happen is I'm just going to use A's and B's. Now C can be used, but you know that they change the letters all the time for your triangles, so it doesn't really matter what the letters are. What they stand for is more important. Remember that in solving a proportion, you have to have 3 out of the 4 sections, which means you're either having 2 angles and a side, or you're having 2 sides and an angle. You could so it doesn't matter what ones you have, you're just going to solve it the same way as far as cross multiplying and getting your variable by itself. The second thing you need to recognize is what is where. So the capital letters are the angles. So we only put the degrees with the sine function. So whatever the degrees are can go in the capital position, and the lowercase letters are the side lengths that are opposite those, and those go in the bottom position. Now, some books actually do it upside down and actually have the side on the top and the sine of the angle on the bottom, which is the same exact proportion when you cross multiply. So you can use the top one or the bottom one to do the same exact thing. So it doesn't matter where your sides go as long as they're consistent. So if you want the sides on the bottom and angles on the top, that's fine. If you want the sides on the top and the angles on the bottom, that's fine. Let's take a look at what a problem would look like when you're solving for a side. So in this case, we're given 2 angles and a side. So we'll have to find the other side. So basically, when we go to set this up, we want the A's together. So we want sine of 45 degrees, that's sine of A, and we need to put little a underneath that, so that's 14. And then we need sine of 60 degrees because we're doing degrees on the top. That has to be consistent, and we're actually solving for little b. So just like I said above, you have to have 3 parts of the proportion. So we have 2 angles and 1 side, which means we're looking for a side. Now, when we go to solve this, we solve this using old school math skill. We're going to do cross multiplication, which means we're going to multiply on the diagonal. And we're going to do b times the sine of 45 and 14 times the sine of 60. So we definitely want the single side length in the front as a multiplier. So we don't want 60 times 14 because that looks like 6,014 degrees, and that's not what we want. So put the single things in the front, then use your sine function here. Notice I didn't calculate anything. I have a calculator right next to me, but I'm not calculating anything until I get b alone. So I'm going to take and I'm going to divide both sides by sine of 45, whatever that is, to get b alone. So now I'm solving for b. b is by itself, and I'm going to type this in the calculator. The one thing I need to make sure that you do is that you're in degree mode. You want to make sure that you calculate the entire top first. So I would do 14 times the sine of 60, get that value and hit enter. This is like the whole entire top. So you definitely want to type in the entire top, get your answer, keep it in the calculator, then just hit divide by and do the bottom. So sine of 45. And you should end up with 17.1. Now we're rounding these to the 10th place. So 17.1 would be your answer. They didn't give us any kind of increments, so we'll just put units is fine. And that's how you solve for a missing side using law of sines and proportions.